Hello, welcome guys. Welcome to Computer Pathshala. So guys, let me tell you about me. Who am I? So myself, Dharmendra Jha. I am having 9.5 years of experience into IT. I am currently working with a MNC company. I can't disclose the name. I'm working with them as a DevOps lead. It's been a long time that I have posted any video about DevOps or tools. If I talk about my certification, so I'm holding Kubernetes, Reddit certified, the certification in terms of technology, and I also having I can say like certification of hardware and networking that I started while I started my career that time. If I talk about like my hobbies, so I love to travel, I love to learn new technology, and I am keen passionate about how can I transfer my knowledge to the younger guys, to the youth who always want to make career into IT sector. So that's all about me. I will share my LinkedIn profile and our YouTube channel. You already know. If you don't know, you can subscribe to it. All right, so let's today we will going to discuss about Kubernetes. We will learn how can we use it, what is Kubernetes, and why basically these days you have heard a lot of more about Kubernetes. If you have any idea about IT sector, okay, so let's begin the journey. Thank you. So first of all, what is Kubernetes, guys? So if I talk about Kubernetes is nothing like it is a I can say like container management tools. If you have idea about like what is Docker, if you have learned about Docker, if you have a little bit experience about container, so let me tell you about basically what is container. So if you know like earlier days when people used to work as a system admin, or I can say like you can say desktop support, or when company actually using like traditional data centers for saving their data. So how the data was actually how application was running that time. So I can say it was like if I talk about, so they will be having like this architecture. If you go to that, so if you have idea like there will be a server. The server was basically on top of hardware. So this was hardware, and on the top of it there is actually operating system, and then top of it we have application running on it. So I can mention like this. Okay, so this was like a application running on a bare metal server. I can say like physical server. Okay, so I can mention here physical server. Okay, so after then from this age we move to the virtualized environment. So what is virtualization? So basically you have idea about like how the VMware or I can say VirtualBox we use to run our application, right? So how actually virtualization works? So as we know, we have hardware layer here, that is our physical server, or you can say physical. I mean, any servers which we have, and the rack is into that we have operating systems, and top of operating system again we install the hypervisor. That hypervisor we use to run the our I can say VMware or that. On the top of this hypervisor there is a layer where which used for we install here virtual machine. So what is the virtual machine? That as we discuss is like our VMware and VirtualBox. And then again top of this virtual machine we are having the operating system, and the top of this operating system we install the app. Okay, so now why we again question is like why earlier it was we install application on physical server, why we move to the I can say like virtualization server, right? So for this one I can tell you that basically when company actually using this server, so it costs a lot basically in terms of like hardware, like infra basically they have to expand a lot of. So for example, if this is a server, this is physical server, on this operating system install, I install application over there, right? So resources which will be on this hardware like memory or CPU, I can say, so that is consumed by each application, not only application, also by the OS. So resource was consumed too much, and also if I have to install any new application, I have to create a new, either get a new server or create an, I can say like increase the hardware. So that's way like we have to work on. So then comes the new technology comes to use the virtualization. So what the virtualization work? How virtualization actually works? So on top of, if you talk about here like in this server part, so apart from like consuming the resources, like apart from sharing the resources, so issue is also happening like suppose if I install any application here, suppose I install here Tomcat. Okay, so if I install Tomcat here and if I install here Apache, so what issue I am getting here is if I am going to remove any dependency package for this, and if that package is also used by this, if I talk about package, that means a particular software I can say, which is kind of dependent software that is also used by this Apache. If I remove that, so this application is also going to not going to work. So this is the issue we are getting. Okay, right? Now, so why we move then to the virtualization? We move to this virtual server because so on top of this hardware and OS, we got the hypervisor. So hypervisor layer, on top of hypervisor we install our virtual machine. So whenever you got now these days the laptop or servers which we are getting, those are actually coming with the hypervisor technology. Okay, so we have virtual machine, VirtualBox, VMware or a Hyper-V of Microsoft. So these tools we use to create, or I can say like install operating system, and on top of that we install the application. So what is the difference here from this to this is basically this, on this layer the application which will be installed here will not going to be any dependency with this application. There will be a dependency on the OS, on the hypervisor and on these things, but there will be no dependency on the like if I talk about like packages or any software. Suppose if Python is used in this one and used by this application as well, if I remove the Python here, so that will not affect this application or this application. So this is the benefit, but again as I said here as well, like resources was utilized too much. Okay, it consumed resources because additional layer also created here, and these things were not working out properly. Okay, so what was the solution was came then? Okay, so the solution which we get is called container deployment. Okay, so which we known as like Docker, or like okay, you have heard about like or Rocket or Containerd. So these are the like containerization tool, CRI. So if I go to here, okay, I'm not going into drawing, sorry guys. So here basically what happened, like hardware, the on top of it will be operating system, And then here on top of it, we have this container runtime. As I said, our container runtime. Okay, then on top of it, we have our application. Okay, like app, and on top of it, this application, we can say like we have, they have like this application is having their own binary, or you can say library, right? So what actually exclude from here? So these part. So they remove these three things like operating system, virtual machine, and hypervisor, right? So these things has been removed, and this is come as a into the containerization. Okay, so how, what actually benefit we got here is it create actually an isolated environment. The this container runtime creating an isolated environment for each our application, okay, which we can use to, you know, create, I mean, run our application. Okay, so these are the benefit is actually having over the using the containerization deployment, or you can say containerized servers such as Docker, Kubernetes. So I will mention it as a containerization environment. Alright, so now let's move to the and details about like Kubernetes, okay, and why we require the Kubernetes. Okay, so now let's go to the next slide. Here we go. Alright, so let me add a new page again for this. One second, guys. Alright, so let's move to the next thing, that why we require Kubernetes. Okay, so you we learn about like what is containerization. So Docker is also a containerization tool, right? We learn about that. So now Docker is used to run the containers basically. Now let's learn why we need Kubernetes. So basically using Kubernetes, the Kubernetes short form will be K8s. You can use as K8s. So this Kubernetes K8s, this when it will provide us the benefit of like load balancer, load balancing. It will provide us service discovery, and then it will provide us like automatic rollout and, sorry guys, automatic rollout and rollback. These things also it can do like self healing. Okay, and there are much more things it can do. Okay, Now let's learn about more details. Let me tell you about how Kubernetes actually works. Alright, let's go for the details about how a Kubernetes cluster looks like. Okay, so this is for today lecture. We will learn about tomorrow.